Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you the top stories from India and the region. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague Jagrati Dave in Washington, D.C. Good to have you with us, Jagrati.
It's good to be with you, Shubhendu. Good morning. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington and 4 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, the Israeli military conduct a complex rescue operation in southern Gaza. To mute or not to mute, Harris and Trump disagree about the rules of engagement, particularly about their microphones, for their upcoming TV debate. We'll cross to our correspondents around the world, but first, the headlines.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds telephonic conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin, reiterates dialogue and diplomacy is the way forward to resolve Russia-Ukraine conflict. Chief of United Nations Atomic Watchdog visits Russia's Kursk region, a nuclear power plant amidst Ukraine incursion, flags risk of nuclear incident. Mark Zuckerberg makes explosive revelation against Biden administration, says he was pressured to censor COVID-related content. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday and exchanged perspectives on Russia-Ukraine conflict and discussed his recent visit to Ukraine. In a post on social media site X, Prime Minister Modi says that both leaders discussed measures to further strengthen special and privileged strategic partnership. He also expressed India's commitment towards peaceful resolution of the conflict. Recalling his visit to Russia last month, Prime Minister Modi reviewed progress on a number of bilateral issues and also exchanged views on a range of regional and global issues of mutual interest. With plans to end the conflict, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said on Tuesday that the conflict will end with dialogue, but Kiev needs strong position. Zelensky has also planned to present a plan with Democratic and Republican U.S. presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Earlier in a series of developments, Russian forces reportedly took control of the village of Orlivka in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the chief of United Nations Atomic Watchdog Rafael Grossi visited Russia's Kursk nuclear power plant on Tuesday amid allegations from Moscow of repeated Ukrainian attacks on the facility. After inspecting the power plant, speaking to reporters, Grossi said there was a risk of a nuclear incident and the situation was serious. Situated 40 kilometers from the volatile front lines, where Ukrainian forces have made incursions into Russian territory, the plant's safety is a pressing concern. Grossi's visit aims to assess the risks and ensure the plant's security, as the ongoing conflict is consistently threatening nuclear facilities, putting them in danger.
We see the plant still operating, but at the same time, the fact that the plant is operating make it even more serious in terms of an eventual action against it. When a plant is operating, the temperature is much higher, and if there was the case of an impact or something that could affect there would be serious consequences.
After the nuclear plant, Grossi visited a school in Kursk region accompanied by Russian officials. Air raid sirens were heard blaring, indicating a missile threat moments before Grossi arrived. DD India's Dasha Chernyshyova joins us live from Moscow. Dasha, could you tell us more on the nature and magnitude of the risk at the Kursk nuclear power plant that Rafael Grossi spoke about?
Well, it is the proximity of this nuclear facility to the fighting between the Russian and the Ukrainian troops that is making the situation particularly dangerous. According to the IAEA head Rafael Grossi, he said that a nuclear power plant of this type, located so close to a point of contact with the military front, is an extremely serious fact. So the very fact that Ukraine has been fighting with the Russian troops in Russia's Kursk region over the past 3 weeks is making it particularly dangerous. But we also understand that the head of the IAEA has said it is too early to call the situation close to being anything like Chernobyl. He also has stressed that there is, even though there is the risk of the nuclear incident in the Kursk region, he is going to analyze what he has received, the information he has received during the visit to the nuclear power plant in the city of Kurchatov, and then discuss it with his Russian colleagues. We understand that he will be holding the talks with the head of Russia's Rosatom company, Alexei Likhachev, and we also expect Rafael Grossi to hold talks with the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in the coming days. So certainly this is a very dangerous situation where Moscow has been insisting that they have provided all the evidence to the IAEA regarding the Ukrainian attacks against the nuclear power plant, saying that there could be no ambiguity with regards to that.
And amidst the rising tensions and the recent escalations, is there any room for dialogue or ceasefire at present? Ukraine President Zelensky appears to believe it is possible.
Well, certainly Russia has been proposing its plan for the peaceful regulation of the conflict in Ukraine, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has most recently been providing his conditions for the negotiated solution. At the same time, the incursion of Russia's Kursk region has changed many things, and the spokesman for the Russian President, Dmitry Peskov, has recently said that it is irrelevant to talk about any sort of peace negotiations between the sides at this stage. So it does seem to be the case that Russia wants to, what they say, squeeze the Ukrainian troops out from the Russian territory before proceeding to any sort of negotiated settlement. And also Russia insists that it is the Western countries that are fueling the escalation and the tension between Russia and Ukraine in this conflict.
Dasha, thank you for joining us with those updates. Dasha Chernyshyova, DD India correspondent, speaking about the developments in Russia. The IAEA chief Rafael Grossi raising concerns of a nuclear fallout or an incident at the power plant. Meanwhile, in the United States, Mark Zuckerberg alleges that Biden-Harris administration pressured Meta to center COVID-related posts among other explosive revelation. DD India correspondent Jagrati Dave is in Washington, D.C., gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Jagrati, these are rather dramatic revelations amidst the presidential race.
Yes, Shubhendu. Meta founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has made several allegations about the Biden-Harris administration. He made the claims in a letter written to a committee of US lawmakers. And in that letter, he said that in 2021, the government officials pressured him to censor some COVID-19 content, including jokes and satire. Zuckerberg also said after officials from the FBI warned of a potential Russian disinformation campaign, Facebook, quote, temporarily demoted content related to Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden's laptop. Let's get more on these allegations from DD India's Caroline Malone, who joins me live from Washington. Hi, Caroline. What more can you tell us about the exchange between Zuckerberg and lawmakers?
Well, Zuckerberg wrote this letter in response to an inquiry that's being carried out by Republican lawmakers, in particular House Committee on the Judiciary led by Jim Jordan. So he wrote this letter, and in it he essentially says he regrets his actions from 2021, that if he was faced with the same decisions, he wouldn't do the same thing again. Ultimately, what happened was he was pressurized by the Biden administration, he says, and due to that, he decided to take down some content related to the pandemic, to COVID-19. The concern over that being that, at the time it was very controversial, and the early days of the pandemic, a lot of people had a lot of conspiracy theories online. One of them that was quite prominent was about people drinking bleach to protect their health. That was the kind of thing that people were alleging should be taken down at the time, but Zuckerberg saying in particular, he took down satire and humour comments that were being made on his platforms, but that he wouldn't do it again. Now, Republican lawmakers see this as a victory, really, that he's admitted in their eyes to censoring on, a tech platform, on a social media platform. That's part of this wider investigation they're doing into all social media. Remember at the time, on Twitter, as it was then called, Trump was actually also kicked off the platform for promoting conspiracy theories that at some times people thought could promote violence. That's obviously now changed with Elon Musk taking over. It's now X. So there is a slightly different era, you could say, in social media. But the debate does remain. What role does government have in controlling, potentially censoring, or allowing freedom of speech on social media? The White House, though, in response to this debate, says they stand by their decision, that they believe that big tech should play a role in considering the effects of what information is put out there, particularly for the American people, while also remaining independent.
Thank you very much, Caroline. That was DD India's Caroline Malone reporting from Washington. Next today, a much anticipated US presidential debate next month between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump was thrown into question over the subject of muted mics as a Republican threatened to pull out. Donald Trump further raised doubts when he also questioned the neutrality of the broadcaster ABC News. Trump and Harris's campaigns were locked in disagreement on Monday over whether each candidate's microphone would be muted when the other spoke, as was the case during Trump's debate in June with Joe Biden. But Harris is pushing for a return to the norm of keeping microphones on. The Trump campaign maintains that the debate should occur under the already agreed conditions. The Israeli military on Tuesday rescued a hostage in a complex rescue operation in the southern Gaza Strip after his abduction by Hamas gunmen more than 10 months ago. A military helicopter landed at the hospital where a 52-year-old Israeli man was taken for examination. His medical condition was determined to be normal.
We cannot go into many details of this special operation, but I can share that Israeli commandos rescued Qaid Farhan el-Qadi from an underground tunnel following accurate intelligence. His medical condition is stable and he will undergo examination in hospital. His family had been waiting 326 days to receive the news they did today. But there are still 108 hostages whose families are still waiting to hear news that their loved ones are home. And they should know that we will not rest. We will not rest until we fulfill our mission to bring all our hostages back home.
Now, changing weather conditions are leading to rising sea levels at a faster rate, in particular around the vulnerable Pacific nations. That's according to a report by the UN and World Meteorological Organization. Addressing the Pacific Islands Forum in Tonga, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres issued yet another climate SOS to the world. This time he said those initials stand for Save Our Seas.
Listen to science. This is a crazy situation. Rising seas are a crisis entirely of humanity's making. A crisis that will soon swell to an almost unimaginable scale with no lifeboat to take us back to safety. But if we save the Pacific, we also save ourselves. The world must act and enter the SOS before it's too late.
And finally, dancers in Buenos Aires are helping tourists take their first forays into the world of tango. Known as taxi dancers, these pros pair up with novices for a night of dancing. Allured by different rhythms, the Argentine capital is host to hundreds of tango events known as milongas. Professionals from around the world are also flocking to Buenos Aires to take part in the Tango World Cup. And that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Shubhendu.
Thank you, Jagrati. Have a good day. And still to come on DD India Global. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer warns that fixing Britain's problems will get worse before they get better. And India hosts Brazil's foreign minister for talks in New Delhi. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has warned that fixing Britain's problems and undoing the harm caused by the previous governments will take a long time, stating the situation will get worse before they get better. He also acknowledged that the upcoming October budget will be challenging but necessary due to the inherited economic circumstances.
There is a budget coming in October, and it's going to be painful. We have no other choice, given the situation that we're in. Those with the broadest shoulders should bear the heavier burden, and that's why we're cracking down on non-doms. Those who made the mess should have to do their bit to clean it up.
And DD India's Ollie Barrett joins us live from London for more. Ollie, if you could decode PM Starmer's vision of tax the wealthy, and how is it being received in the UK?
Well, Shubhendu, we heard there, didn't we, the phraseology that Keir Starmer is using is that those with the broadest shoulders should be contributing more when it comes to taxation. What we don't know yet, though, is exactly what that means. We do have that budget coming up in October, which the Finance Minister Rachel Reeves will deliver. But while tax rises of some sort are being heavily hinted at by Keir Starmer today and have been by Rachel Reeves as well, we don't know exactly what types of taxation they are looking at. Keir Starmer did today again rule out raising income tax or national insurance tax or VAT sales tax as well. And so there are limited options, really. It could well be that he is looking at some kind of hike in tax on inheritance, for example, some kind of changes to pension tax relief, for example. But there will certainly be difficult decisions ahead for the government if indeed it does feel that there is a gap to fill in the public finances, and that is what the accusation that is being made at the Conservatives is from the new Labour government. They say that public finances are much worse than they even knew during the election campaign, and that's why we're seeing Keir Starmer really laying the ground now ahead of the budget in October for the potential of tax rises when we get there.
Ollie, just to understand the context of Prime Minister Starmer's statements, can you take us through the key economic challenges facing the UK ahead of the new budget?
Well, the main challenge that Keir Starmer says his government is having to respond to is that they claim the public finances are around £20 billion, over $20 billion worse off than they knew during the election campaign. They say that that is the size of the black hole in Britain's finances that they have to fill. Now, the now opposition Conservatives deny that the problem is that bad. They deny that the legacy that they are handing over to the new Labour government is as bad as Labour is portraying it. But there is certainly some difficulties within the public finances, which mean that the spending plans that the Labour government has in place will be difficult to achieve, either without raising taxes or with some kind of extra borrowing. The UK economy has seen very low rates of growth recently. That is one of the major economic challenges as well. We have low unemployment in the UK at the moment, but high rates of economic inactivity, low rates of productivity. So there are all sorts of challenges that Labour says it wants to get on top of. But as I say, the Conservatives are furiously pushing back against this idea that they've handed over a poor economic legacy to Labour. They say that actually the UK economy is growing and fairly healthily so, and that Labour is being disingenuous.
Ollie, thank you for joining us with those updates. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar welcomed Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira for the 9th India-Brazil Joint Commission meeting in New Delhi on Tuesday. At the opening remarks of the meet, Jaishankar said that India looks forward to discussing key G20 outcomes from India's presidency last year. Vieira's visit is an opportunity to explore new avenues of cooperation in bilateral, regional and multilateral arena across diverse sectors. Ministry of External Affairs said that the meet will provide further impetus to strategic partnership between India and Brazil. Brazilian Foreign Minister is on an official 4-day visit to India.
Let me also begin by congratulating Brazil for conducting the G20 meeting successfully. And also on the first ministerial consensus document realized during the G20 Development Working Group ministerial meeting. I'd like to reiterate India's full support to the Brazilian G20 presidency and also recall that we got your fullest support during our own presidency. We also have a very important energy cooperation between our two countries and we of course have particularly valued the biofuels cooperation that India and Brazil have established.
Japan has termed the violation of its airspace by a Chinese military aircraft as utterly unacceptable. The reaction comes a day after Japan scrambled jets and summoned a Chinese embassy official in Tokyo in protest. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Hayashi Yoshimasa said the airspace breach was not only a serious violation of Japan's sovereignty, but also threatened the country's security. Meanwhile, China has said it was verifying Japan's claims of incursion by a Chinese military aircraft into its space. The World Health Organization has launched a global plan to stop the new outbreaks and spreading of Mpox disease through collective national, regional and global efforts. The suggested plan will cover 6 months starting September 2024 to February next year. DD India's Daniel Kijop has more.
The WHO has announced a plan awaiting feedback from member states that requires $135 million in funding. The plan aims to enhance surveillance, boost prevention efforts, and improve the overall readiness and response to outbreaks. Key aspects of the plan include increasing research, ensuring fair access to medical countermeasures such as vaccines and diagnostic tests, as well as reducing the risk of diseases jumping from animals to humans. It will also increase community engagement in preventing and managing outbreaks. A pivotal element of the strategy is targeted vaccinations campaigns focused on those most vulnerable, such as healthcare workers and individuals in close contact with recent patients. Importantly, the plan stresses global leadership, providing countries most in need with access to essential medicine interventions and guiding timely and research responses to healthcare crises. A recent statistic from the Africa CDC indicate a concerning outbreak with over 21,466 suspected cases of Mpox and 591 fatalities reported across the 13 African Union member states from the start of 2024 up to August 2023. The African unit has raised alarm over the virus reaching countries previously untouched by Mpox, with new imported cases signaling a significant risk of further spread beyond the African continent. Daniel Kijo in Dar es Salaam reporting for DD India.
In Pakistan, the death toll in multiple cases of terror attacks reported in Balochistan province has crossed 70. As per the latest reports, terrorists attacked police stations, railway lines and highways. Pakistan's military says 14 soldiers and 21 terrorists were killed in retaliatory operations. Rail traffic with Quetta was suspended on Monday following blasts on a rail bridge in the town of Bolan. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Spain begins preparations for Tomatina Food Fight Festival as more than 120,000 kilograms of tomatoes were transported to Banol in trucks. More than 22,000 people from across the globe visited and took part in one of the world's most famous food fights. The 81st Venice Film Festival is set to kick off on Wednesday with 21 films selected in the competition. The world's oldest film festival is an 11-day event with films, premieres and attendees including A-listed actors, producers and directors. Malaysian government reiterated that it is ready to discuss the proposed license regulations, but companies must comply with local laws to continue operating in Malaysia. Social media platforms and messaging services in the country with more than 8 million users must opt in a license or face legal consequences by January 1st, 2025. Popular British rock band Oasis is set to make a comeback after 15 years with a series of live shows next year. The band announced tickets will go on sale from Saturday. They announced their plan of reunion with brothers Noel and Liam Gallagher in a series of live shows starting from July 4th next year. Good news for the fans. That's all for this edition of DD India Live and Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on the screens to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.